Hello, it's Benny from StarCityGames.com, and I love creatures that do cool things in Commander. Sadly, cool creatures die a lot to sweepers and mass removal, which is where Eudora Gravegardener comes in. It's a 5/5 for 5 mana, and whenever another of your non-token creatures die, you can return to the battlefield face down as a forest, untapped. This will let you cast bigger and splashier spells, which is what Commander is all about.
Hello! My name is Angelo, aka the Jess Guy, and I'm a writer for EDH Rec. My favorite card from Strixhaven is Exodus Auric Overlord and his backside, Awaken the Blood Avatar. This legend allows you to build a Mardu Aristocrats deck in a variety of ways, from a slow, grindy deck, utilizing Exodus's Magecraft ability to generate value over time, to even culling your creatures to cast Awaken the Blood Avatar multiple times a turn to kill the table in a single swing, or even a mix of both. Exodus's versatility is what draws me to him, and since he's currently the most built legend from Strixhaven on EDH Rec, I'm not the only one who thinks that. He's a really cool card with a really unique ability, and I'm super stoked to build around him.
Hi there everybody, my name's Alex. I'm a member of the Spike Feeders. You can find me at Spike Feeder Alex on Twitter, and you can catch the Spike Feeders at the Spike Feeders on YouTube. My favorite Strixhaven card is Strixhaven Stadium. I just think it's really fun that we've got a new mana rock at 3 CMC that also comes in with a new and fairly unique victory condition. It's the type of thing that I really want to try out, and I think it's going to be fun to play with.
Hey, my name is Ken. I run the channel Stacked EDH. We make concise videos about Magic's best format, Commander, both casual and competitive. I love a lot of the cards from Strixhaven and the Commander 2021 precons. I think my favorite have to be the cards with Magecraft, particularly Veyron, Voice of Duality. I love that there are Magecraft synergies, and I have come to dub Veyron's second ability Sakashima Krark Harmonicon, or Saka Krark Harmonicon, because Veyron really helps my competitive Krark and Sakashima Storm deck.
Hi everybody, my name is Chase, also known as Mana Curves. I am a Commander content creator. I stream deck building and paper Commander content on my Twitch channel, which is Mana Curves, and I also write articles for TCG Player.
I have to say that my favorite card from Commander 21 is actually Alabu Ancient Witness. I'm not very much a Boros person, but I've learned to really enjoy Lorehold. I find it to be really cool. I love the Indiana Jones vibes, but I do have to say I really like this card because it's not your typical Boros artifact commander. It's very strategic, you know, how many artifacts can you tap on your board so that you can deal that much damage. I really like the concept of just tapping as much as you can to deal as much damage as you can, and I really think that's really cool. I played Alabu actually on stream, the precon. I didn't do anything with it except to take it out of the box, and I was able to deal at one point 26 damage and scry about 26, so I have to say Alabu is probably my favorite card from Commander 21.
Hey everybody, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic, and welcome to the round table for Magic's latest set, Strixhaven. Before we introduce our esteemed guests for tonight, I wanted to remind everybody that we are raising donations for Magic Kids. By using the !donate command in chat, you can see how to contribute. Now, normally I'd ask you to do this out of the goodness of your heart, but we have prizes that we're raffling away at the end of tonight, too. So make sure to donate in increments of $5 to be entered for some fantastic prizes and giveaways, and raise for a good cause. Magic Kids is an organization that works to put magic in the hands of clubs and mentors in schools around the country to get kids into Magic and get kids learning through gaming. It's obviously a cause that's close to many of our hearts as well, and no better one for us to support for a school-themed set 2. So you know who I am. Let's go around the horn and introduce ourselves as well. Rachel, why don't you kick us off?
I will kick it off. This is my cat Scully. I'm Rachel Weeks. I'm a member of the Commander Advisory Group, and I'm also the co-host of the comedy Commander podcast, The Commander Sphere.
Fantastic.
Scully just won an MTG Cats contest, but otherwise her
Scully
credits
won.
in the Magic Sphere are fairly...
That's awesome.
She did.
Awesome. And I'm sure we'll hear Scully's thoughts on Strixhaven coming up soon.
Oh, certainly.
DeQuan.
Oh boy, I am also on the Commander Advisory Group as of a few months ago, but you normally probably see me on YouTube on my channel doing magic-related content, though I do a lot of things on there pretty much every day. And I have a podcast called Color of Magic where we talk about a lot of the things away from the gaming table that affect gaming pretty heavily, and that's actually been going pretty well. We're actually at 79 episodes now, so that's very cool. So yeah, that's normally where you can find me. That's where I'm most active, but lately I've just been sharing shower thoughts on Twitter if you want to come do that with me as well.
Which, if you aren't following DeQuan, pro-follow those shower thoughts, A+. Ellie, how about yourself?
Hi, I'm Ellie. I write for I write for Channel Fireball, and I usually do profiles on people in the Magic community. And I also write for Wizards of the Coast esports page, the magic.gg. I stream a little. I have a schedule, but it's more of a troll. So, and this is my cat Simon.
Oh, look, more cats. There we go.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Lynch, how about yourself? Oh,
Lynch, you're muted.
You were muted.
You're muted, Lynch.
You're still muted. You can do this, Lynch. We believe in you.
Nope. We got nothing.
I heard a
Send
car.
him your bandwidth.
Yeah, it was wild. It the audio came and then went.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we can't hear you, Lynch. We'll come back to you in a moment. Jake, how about yourself?
Sure. Hey, I'm Casual Jake, and I make magic content. I stream over with Elder Dragon Skyplander on our Twitch. I also stream Magic Arena on my channel, Casual Jake, and I do a little YouTube show called Casual Corner, where I invite friends, content creators, and friends to play some webcam magic. We record it, edit it, and put it up there. And I happen to be a full-time choir teacher, so hopefully I'll bring some of that educational teacher perspective to our panel today.
Fantastic.
Am I back?
Lynch, can we hear you now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey.
Yes.
I think it was a phone call came in. Anyways, so yes, I'm Lynch. I'm one of the creators of I Hate Your Deck. Despite the title, it's actually a love letter to the game. I love Commander. I love playing Magic. But I wanted to make a show that showed Commander the way I've experienced it. I'm currently traveling the world on TV shows. And as I've done that, I've played LGSs around, and you never know what deck might show up and pop off and do crazy things. And I wanted to have fun highlighting that, but also highlighting how fun it is to play Magic, because I do feel, depending on who you talk to, Magic can have a certain stigma attached. And I wanted to be part of the positive force to show how fun it is to play with your friends. So that's a big thing that, we're trying to do at I Hate Your Deck. We've got 7 episodes so far. Episode 8 drops on the 30th. And we pretty much drop every 2 weeks. We drop a new gameplay episode. So it's all about the love of Commander.
Phenomenal. Fantastic. And lastly, but not leastly, Clay.
Hey, I'm Clay, or Claybee. I'm the second C here at the CNCPowerHour. We do virtual EDH Wednesday evenings and Sunday afternoons. In healthier times, we stream all kinds of live paper magic. If there's a pre-constructed product, we've shown it on set. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And I want to say thank you to all of you again for joining us on here, and for Chris for agreeing to moderate and keep coming back no matter how many times we annoy him.
Hey, I absolutely love it. I love doing these, and I love working with everybody out there. We're all here together to talk about Strixhaven, the latest set for Magic, and its impact on the community as well as the format of Commander, a format that we all love. Now, one thing about Strixhaven is that it's got these houses to it, these schools to it. It's got Lorehold and Prismari and Quandrix and Silverquill and Witherbloom. And I wanted to take a quick moment and get everybody's input on what school you think you fit into and why. I know myself, I'm a Silverquill. My background and evocation is in enunciation, let's say. I am a presenter and a performer first and foremost, and I think that fits the Silver Quill mottos more than anything else. Clay, why don't we start with you? What house or school do you belong to?
I was conflicted in the beginning, but I think like at the end of the day, like the closest association for me is Prismari for sure. I was back and forth between Silverquill and Prismari because I like words, verbiage, wordplay, and all that kind of stuff. But like at the end of the day, like I'm a theater choral kid, and I'm going to live and die by the expression of emotion and performance. Like that's just who I am. And the bigger that show is, the brighter the colors are. That's going to be me. And so it's not necessarily my magic style, but like that's definitely what I kind of like vibed with the most, I guess.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things about these schools from Strixhaven as well, is that the color identity and the way that you identify with them doesn't necessarily have to align, or the play styles within them as well. It's something that you take away from what they represent. Jake, how about yourself?
Well, unlike Clay, it was super easy for me, man. Prismari all the way. I was already a blue-red mage since I pretty much got into the game. But again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a choir director. My whole being is using expression, using art to present emotion, and to not only present them, but to work through them personally. And one thing I'm excited to talk about is how these cards kind of represent using that inner emotion, turmoil, inspiration, and it gets turned into something. So Prismari, I'm all about the expression. Super easy pick for me.
Fantastic. And I don't think anybody who follows you on Twitter would have any doubt as well, since you've been
I'm also just
Prismari choral director for weeks now.
It's been great.
Ellie,
I had a few people said they wish they got on that sooner. Sorry.
Hey, no problem. Ellie, how about yourself?
I actually don't really identify with any of the colleges very strongly. Strong enough to be like, oh, this is definitely like where I'm at. I guess I think that maybe a younger me, like a childhood me, could relate a lot to like Lorehold. You know, that wanted to be like the little kid in you that wants to have like be an archaeologist and stuff like that. Like I kind of like maybe little child me is like Lorehold, but now adult me is probably maybe closer to like Silverquill is probably the closest thing. But yeah, all the schools are really cool, and I actually think it's interesting that I kind of relate to a little bit of all of them.
Absolutely. It's great. Again, people can find little bits of all of them, and you don't have to identify with their colors or their play styles or anything, and there's a little bit that's represented from each. That's great insight. Lynch, how about you? Oh. All right.
You know, it's not so, you know, if I had to pick one, I guess because Prismari is like arts and I do arts, so I would probably have to side with that. And the only stuff I'm looking to build out of their set currently is it or Prismari. So yeah, I mean, but it's hard because I mean I am interested in Witherbloom, you know, but you know, so I'm struggling with that identity.
Yeah. Hey. Absolutely. It's great, and again, because of your background in production, it's natural that you'd feel a little bit of connection to Prismari as the creative kids, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can see the gear literally in the back.
Exactly. DeQuan, how about you?
I'm literally like square in the middle of two of them, right? Because I have Lorehold, where I'm very much like the mentor type, like teaching people, but like I could give a damn about like ancient history. But then I look at Quandrix and I'm like, I don't really care about numbers for the sake of numbers' sake. But like, if you catch me with my content, I will like, for statistic, analytics, whatever, I will like go to town. Where like money's involved, I'm in. So.
Right.
I'm somewhere. If I could have like a Quan hold, because it sort of sounds like my name, which is awesome. Like if you could do that, then I'm probably in. That's probably where I'm at.
Wizards make that happen.
Yeah, right? No kidding. Next time when we return to Strixhaven, we'll get Quan hold.
There you go. There you go.
I
I
forgot
will be
to
the
say
dean of that college.
There you go.
I forgot to
Lynch?
say something earlier. DeQuan, one of your episodes I think you did with Professor is where I think you two were talking about don't wait to make the perfect content, do it now.
Absolutely.
That was the minute that I decided I needed to stop waiting to make I Hate Your Deck.
Oh man, I have
watched
so much I can say on that
video.
topic if we have time at the end of the show, for sure.
I had to
Absolutely.
say that. I meant to say it in my intro, but then I was muted and I had to deal with that issue. But thank you, because as someone like myself who always has to wait till things are perfect, especially because I work in this business, I was finally like, you know what, whatever. I have enough gear to at least try to do it. And I Hate Your Deck is kind of also your fault.
I hear
Thank
that
you
about
for
a
that.
lot of content people are making these days, and I don't know how I feel about that.
When does DeQuan start the podcast? I hate your content idea. Like it's a love letter to content philosophy.
I can't do that. I actually started doing some consulting for people on content, so I'm actually helping people make more, not less.
Fantastic.
That sounds very loyal to me.
Hey, right?
Again, the mentor.
Exactly. And Rachel, how about you? Which of the colleges do you identify with, if any?
I think optimistically, I am a Witherbloom. I think that's like how I would love to be. And I think realistically, I'm a stand-up comedian and I'm a writer, and I'm a Silver Quill. So
Right.
I think I would go into school being like, I'm going to study animals, and they're like, no, you're going to do poetry. Shut up. So I think Silver Quill. Probably.
At least you could write the poems about animals, right? like you
Yeah,
could like end up
right.
finding.
And there's nothing
I
that's
think
saying that
maybe
you
I'm
can't
a
raise
Silver
the
Quill who hangs out with Witherblooms.
Perfect.
Fair.
There you go.
Maybe that's me. Maybe I'm a Silver Quill who hangs out with Lorehold people.
There you go.
Like, hey, tell me
Right.
some cool ancient history stuff so I can like write about it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Fantastic. So it sounds like for the most part, we all identify with something different about a lot of the colleges. And I think that that's true of a lot of the audience as well. One of the things that this set does is harken back to many of our days in school, right? Whether it be in high school or whether it be in post-secondary education, whatever our backgrounds might be, there's a little bit of something that we can identify with here. And the set tells a story and a representation, and clearly a kind of torn from the pages of real life representation in a lot of cases of school and education. And I wanted to start off our discussion about that a little bit. There are some depictions of some aspects of education throughout the set that maybe aren't represented in a light and might be representative of some traumas that people might have through their schooling or through their education. Everything from academic pressures through to cliques and bullying represented on magic cards. Does anybody have any thoughts about the way that that's handled and the way that's represented in essentially a fantasy game?
Well, I will say one of the interesting things that I didn't think I really processed when they first put the set out is it's very much a representation of like the American view of education or of the school experience, whether that's high school, college, whatever. And that's not something until I started talking to people through like Twitter and whatever that understands like, oh yeah, like I guess, British university looks a bit different than, going to school in the middle of Nebraska or whatever, right? Like, and I think that actually could have been done a little different to make it more, I don't know, worldly. So I'm not sure, and you know, it's some of the stuff plays well, some of it doesn't, as far as how like other people relate to it, which I found that to be pretty interesting. So I don't know how universal a lot of these things really are.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And some of it resonates with some, and some of it might go over the heads of others because, like you mentioned, it is kind of a more traditional North American representation of a schooling system. Myself from Canada, not from the US, like many may be, it resonates with me in my experience as well. So it's not strictly a US thing, but more of a North American representation, without a doubt. Anybody else with any insights about how overall education is represented, or the schooling system is represented throughout the cards, the flavor, the story?
Yeah, I had a quick aside. So I was looking at the set overall, and it's so interesting because so I went to a four-year university here in the States, got my master's degree as well, and the way the colleges interact with each other to me seem a little less how colleges acted toward each other in the Americas, almost more like how frats did. Because I was also in a music fraternity, and where it comes with rivalry and competition and stuff. I got that more from the other fraternities that I was a part of, rather than felt like I had to compete with the math people or the history people. You know, I never felt really I almost felt just disconnected from them. I was kind of in my own world doing the fine arts and whatnot, and there was never really a lot of crossover and stuff. But I think that Strixhaven plays into a more of the magical schoolhouse trope that we see. And of course, there'll be parallels to Harry Potter and stuff like that, where there's competition in that. I just thought it was interesting because, again, when you look at a media like Harry Potter, you usually have younger students, and it's interesting. At my school, we actually implement a house system to healthily have competition between our students, where the houses compete for points and prizes and stuff like that. But on a college level, to me, it just didn't necessarily translate. It was very disconnected. I feel like, I don't know. It depends on how you look at the set. And I was starting to look at it when I first saw it as a college set. And then as I started seeing some other stuff, my perspective changed just a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And your insight with your background and being a teacher yourself is absolutely valuable to assessment like this too, because you see these things happening in real time in real schooling. Do you feel that kind of education in silos like this, whether it be houses or colleges or groups within a school system, does it foster a healthy rivalry, or can it foster unhealthy rivalries? Is there frat versus frat, for instance? And does anybody have any insights on that as well? But Jake, please.
Sure, I'll just kick it off with at a younger age, which it looks like, again, this set seems to encompass a large range of age groups. For younger students, learning in these different colleges it might breed an unhealthy view of other intellectual studies and whatnot. I found when I was in college, again, I knew what I wanted to study. I wanted to study choir and the fine arts and whatnot. So for me at that point, at that level of my education, it was a good thing because I could focus on the nitty gritty of my craft. When there are, and I think the lesson cards do this really well. Those general lessons, I forget what some of them are, but the kind of the basic classes that you have to take. I was glad to see that represented to kind of show the baseline. And then we get into the specialization once a student knows exactly where they're going to be. And I think even in the lore, the first year, you're not required to have a house or a college, should I say. You can kind of float, find your place. And then once you find one that fits, you can specialize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
The thing that I
Rachel,
thought was,
any insights?
The thing that I thought was most interesting about this set is it feels a lot of the things that they're introducing to Magic cards are very pedestrian. They're things that we've had specific, like, personal experiences with, right? We're talking about like your relationship with your dean, like your dad, like that relationship, like a parental relationship. That's not something that we've seen on Magic cards before.
Right.
So it there's a dragon that's also there, but like it was very cool to see stuff that was like specific and relatable in terms of a character. And I think that makes you really want to connect with the set in a way that a lot of sets you don't really feel personally connected to. Like you look at Tarkir and you're not exactly like, wow, I'm a barbarian in the Tarkir or whatever. Like you don't have any specific relationship to those cards. So I think that's been one of my favorite thing about Strixhaven so far.
And you know what's funny with like what both of y'all are saying? Like when I saw the the trailer, I guess you want to call it that, for the set, like that felt very much like a relatable video they show you as you're like entering high school, right? Like the local like drama club has to put on the presentation or whatever. And like I was like, man, this just feels so familiar, right? But to Jake's point, it didn't feel so much like a college thing, right? I don't remember, like when you went to college, you're just like, here's a quick presentation, let's give you the tour, and you know, like here's the school you're gonna have to, all your classes are gonna be in or whatever, and that was kind of it, you know. But that felt much more like that experience of getting ready to go to high school and having, you know, each group say like, hey, you want to be in sports, here's the thing, you know, and you sort of got that. So I'm not really sure. I think they may have intended for it to be a college thing, but I think both of you hit on very interesting points, that it was very familiar, but I don't know if it was necessarily like college familiar in every aspect. But there were definitely some there, though.
Right. And that's one of the things that kind of got me with this set was I couldn't, at first I was like, college, okay, so older. But then like there's some things that feel like you said, like high school. So there was a little bit of disjointness with what kind of school, what level of schooling, which again is kind of sometimes might be a North American idea as well. So going back to relatability on how we're classifying the school system itself.
Right, absolutely. Ellie, any insights from your end? How relatable is it, and how grounded in reality do you feel this set is, and does that make it more relatable to a broader audience?
First of all, I would like to thank you for repeating the question, because I've been thinking about a lot of different things. As y'all have all been talking, so it's good to focus back in. No, I think Rachel said it very well about how there is a lot of pedestrian aspects to the set, and I think that's a big reason why people have responded to certain things of the way they have. It's kind of weird seeing, like a good example, I guess, is like with the Rowan and Will, how Will is trying to be like, okay, like I'm studying, what are you doing? You're hanging out. Oh, look at your Witherbloom friends, you know, like that kind of thing. And it's like, oh, I feel like I have had this conversation with a friend of mine who is much more of a study person than me. I like that it does have these more real world relationships, and sure, the backdrop is like fantasy and stuff, but I do kind of like that. Right. I think some of it, I don't know. I feel like it's there are aspects of it that are really close to, that I relate to, like with Rotha, the blue-red one.
Rutha?
Being kind of Rutha, sorry, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes. Kind of the pressure that you put yourself under. Same thing, I guess, with Killian, the pressure that we put ourselves under in school to be the best. Sometimes we feel like we're in a position, it's not really what we want, but we kind of feel stuck, like, oh, I can't switch because of all those reasons. I related to that, and I think that they did really well.
So that begs the question, with something that's this relatable on a plane for many people with a schooling background and experience with either secondary education or post-secondary education, despite this being a world with vampires and elephant people and elder dragons, we still have 101s. We still have rivalries. We still have cliques in schools. Does that, make it more relatable to a broader audience? Is Strixhaven kind of Wizard's entry point to people, to a broader audience? And B, does that open up some wounds for people that might have bad experiences with these things? Is there a negative side to it being this relatable? And Clay, I can see you've got a point on this one.
Yeah, so like we talk about the relatability of this set and it being grounded, and I think that when Rachel brought that up, I was thinking about the previous sets, and like Kaldheim and Ikoria are like the opposite end of a fantasy spectrum, right? And then like we're here where like, yes, there are elder dragons and there's magic, but like in the day-to-day depictions of the cards, this could be a novel, sans magic, sans any of that. It could just be, literature fiction. And I didn't really resonate initially with the set until we started getting story bits and started seeing these things. And Ellie talked about Killian, and like that is something that for me specifically, kind of some of the artwork and some of the stuff, like immediately, like I failed out of college, lost a full ride research scholarship, went through a lot of trauma during my secondary education. Like that was a very, very dark period of my life, and seeing that stuff like kind of dredged up some of that stuff, but then ended up, I think, for me personally, kind of like it made it feel more real to me. Like I was more invested in the cards and that stuff. Like Rutha as well. Like if it's it's never finished, just discard it, do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do something new. Let's do something new. Going through all that, like it makes these characters, I think, relatable in a way that a lot of legendary creatures that we see in Magic, we don't have this. We don't have that kind of vulnerability or shared experience, right? Like if you look at Kaldheim and some of the legendaries in there, right? They're really cool. I love playing these cards. I can't see myself in them. When I look at the art for Quintorius, right? And there's Expel, and there's the trying to find his place. There's and then finding that, and then like that elation in knowing who you are and where you, I don't want to say belong, but what a place that is good for you and is right for you. That just resonates so much stronger. I don't want to say like people being negatively affected by seeing their trauma or issues like that in art, like that I could definitely understand having that reaction, but I know for me personally it only ended up kind of connecting me more firmly to the set. And so like this is the first set I read the story for in a while, like, or even cared about the lore, and I think that's specifically because of that groundedness.
Fantastic. Thank you for that share, Clay, by the way. Yeah. DeQuan, any insights from your side?
Yeah, I think, what you say has a bunch of valid points there. I think there's a lot that's relatable, and good and bad comes with that, right? There's going to be people that are, oh man, this is like a throwback and I had all these good memories, and then like you're saying, like you went through a lot of stuff, you'll be like, yeah, college, like it's going to be tough for people. And I think it's always a marketing gamble, right? When you make something that's that relatable, it's going to come with good and bad, because you also have the other side, right? You have a bunch of people who couldn't afford to have gone to college. So like, do they even connect with it at all? Because they look at it and go like, okay, this is like stuff I see in movies or whatever, but I never lived it. So is that going to be a thing for some people? And that's a tough decision to have to make from Wizard's side. Like at some point you have to say, we know these are potential issues, good and bad. Like, are we willing to go this route? And is it just taking a shot at something to try to reach out to new people who maybe the fantasy stuff is too far beyond them? So finding something relatable might be the hook, or, like in Clay's case, it was just like, okay, you went through and went, oh, okay, well now this actually kind of has me reinterested, even though it did bring up a couple of memories. I think it's very tough. Now I think we did see some stuff on Twitter where some people weren't so happy with the way things were really represented as far as like Killian and his dad and the whole Asian parent situation. I have friends who lived through that. Like not even in college. They went through that through like middle school and high school, and so to have that be portrayed on cards, I know has to be hard for people. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I think there's as much good that's going to come out of it as bad, but I think even within the subject matter, I think some stuff has to be handled and treated very carefully if you do want to tell that type of story, because there has to be an end result or a cool like outcome to it. Like, okay, if we're gonna watch Killian go through all this stress and go through all these things and dredge up these memories for people and these bad vibes, what are we getting for that journey? You know, and I don't know if that was able to be told within the context of just one set of Strixhaven.
Absolutely, and there are some clues on some cards, but you only see one or two cards where that story is followed through with Killian, and he finds comfort in the arms of a fellow student, Dina, who shows him compassion for the first time, and you see the other side of that the flip side of that kind of academic pressure is the relationships that you form throughout your schooling with fellow students as well, whether in this case they be of your same college or not. And that's kind of the social side of schooling that's represented in these cards too. Jake, your insights on this, does anything ring too close to home as a teacher?
So I was actually going to speak a little bit on my own personal upbringing and the way that college was presented in my household. It's funny. My parents described me as a first-generation college student, though not true. My mom did go back to college and she finished her degree, and I have to remind her of that constantly because she's always like, "You were the first one to go." I'm like, "No, Mom, you got a degree." But what they mean is I was the first one to go from high school to college. You know, I did the thing that at least in, again, North American culture is you do high school, you go to college. Like that's what you're supposed to do. And like we talked about, that's not always the case, whether because of affordability, the way that the public school system is set up to where low income areas are not set up to be successful and whatnot, which is a whole nother thing we can talk about later. But I was fortunate enough that I had a good head on my shoulders. I had parents that kept me in line, kept me moving forward. And I got a small, modest scholarship, took out a bunch of loans, and I went to college. I did the thing. So college to me was always this sense of pride. Like, you did it, you made it. And then to be the first in my family to go and get a master's degree, knowing that now the new norm for my lineage is higher education is, thank you, DeQuan, to be a part of that. When I have children, one day, college was a big deal for my family. And so now it's like, oh, well, master's degree, where else can we go from there? So seeing this stuff was more of a positive thing for me. It really hooked me in the set because most of my college experiences are rose tinted in a lot of ways. Now, being a teacher and seeing kind of the other side of it, the things that happen in the bureaucratic side, if you will, of what goes on, I'm a little bit more disillusioned. But this set in particular brought me back to the good old days, if you will, of doing the thing, being out on my own, learning who I was, learning a lot about myself. And so in that sense, it got me. But I definitely, like Clay was mentioning, experienced those friends who did not have that same experience. And so, again, like DeQuan said, it's kind of a toss-up in a lot of ways. And I think the set handles it well enough. But there's only so much you can do in one set, and it's going to resonate differently with different people. So there's the pros and cons to hitting so close to home.
Fantastic. Yeah, there is that flip side to it. You're going to alienate as many people as you draw in, right? Depending on the interpretations and people's experiences of it, without a doubt. Rachel, how about your insights? Is this welcoming? Is it something that can open up wounds for people?
Well, it's such a complicated time to sort of harken back to, right? Because it's, you're 20 or you're 19, so you're have the sort of the maximum amount of freedom and the minimum amount of knowledge. So it's I feel like a lot of people's years, like college years, were some of their most fun and wild years, and also some of the scariest and most depressing years, or whatever it was, because it's an enormous turning point for everybody. And I think that, yes, it's a risky move to use this as a linchpin for your set, but I also think there's this huge potential to grab onto it because it's a part of your life that's so formative. Like the card that grabbed me first was Mavinda. It's Mavinda Students Advocate. So she's like a counselor. Like it's this giant owl counselor, and she's literally has a student under her wing and is like, let's get you in the school you want to get in. You know, like it's this like beautiful moment between like a human girl and an owl, and it really reminds you of the people in your journey, in your like educational journey, whether positive or negative, that really tried to be a mentor to you, right? So that owl is somebody different for everybody, but we all look at that card and can recognize that as a person in our life, whether that's in the educational system or not, really. So I think it was a triumphant effort, and I think a lot of cool things came out of it. I think they tried to tell a lot of stories and didn't have a lot of space, so it's possible that they leaned too far on stereotype just to try and cover a wide basis in this very specific set, like highly relatable zone. They tried to cover 5 different types of people, and that required them to lean on stereotype, and I think that didn't necessarily serve them as specifically in the Silver Quill instance, but it's a tough thing to do. It was a very ambitious idea for a set.
Somebody in the chat mentioned something that I feel like I missed in the set if it's there, but did we not have a card that even mentioned hanging out in the quad? Like that's a thing that like every school has, right? Like this,
Right.
Lunchroom. I want a legendary land.
I was just about to say that too. Like we didn't get one for like a cafeteria or a mess hall or anything, right?
Sure.
Like how did we miss that?
I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna say real quick. I think one thing that I felt like a lot of people touched on was that this idea of how tough it is to tell stories in a single set. I think that it's really cool, like regardless of the overall outcome. I think it's really cool that Magic is trying different things with the sets that they're giving us, the stories that they're giving us, and I would hope that they continue to explore new spaces and try new things, and hopefully they're able to take the correct lessons away from this, as far as if you're going to try to squeeze into a single set, maybe you only tell 3 or 4 narratives, or the narratives are smaller, or if you're going to go into these more negative tropes, ensuring that you have a solid narrative payoff, like giving people the resolution. If you're going to dip into these spaces, giving them that resolution, you know what I mean? But ultimately I think them doing new things is important. I thought, going to new places, trying new things, showing new cards, new style, all the stuff, like every time we do this, it just grows, right? It grows the game, it grows the community, the number of people that can connect. It just all elevates. And I hope that they keep doing it while taking the feedback from the community.
Great. And that's something that I want to touch on next. I do want to get Lynch and Ellie's feedback on the set in general, and whether it's welcoming or wounding, we'll say here. Ellie, what do you think? Is the set relatable in a good way, or can it be interpreted in a negative way as well?
Well, I mean, clearly it can be interpreted in a negative way because it has. I think I do think that it is a fault of the medium, which is that this is a card game. And it is worth asking the question, if the medium that you're trying to tell a story with is too small for your story, then is that a story that you should be telling? Mm-hmm. Is that the kind of story you should be telling? Like, you're doing certain things, particularly with traumatic things, you're doing it a disservice. And I think that is a fair critique in this sense. And I do think they fumbled in, they did great in putting something in that's relatable. They fumbled in the sense that they didn't really do it do certain things, like do things well.
Mm.
And yeah, I think Rachel said it really well about it being a very ambitious idea, but because of the medium, they had to use stereotypes and stuff. And I think that's, for me, that's kind of that is the part that's most irritating about the set. But there's good and there's bad, and I appreciate the fact that they tried something, and that they, in some ways, they did it really well, and then in other ways they made me irritated. So but I think that's just life. I think really the most important thing as a community when we come across things like this is that there are going to be some people who have certain feelings, and there's going to be other people who have different feelings, and they're talking about the same thing. These are valid, like these are their feelings, right? Like, I think part of the discussion that I have seen before would be like somebody saying, oh, well, I really hate the Asian stereotypes here. And then somebody else being like, well, it's not really a stereotype, it's a thing that happens. And then this going back and forth, I really don't think that does anybody any good. People see art, they see media, and they feel a certain way about it, and that's fine. And we should just really respect that in conversations with each other. I just wanted to say like that.
Absolutely. Everybody's insight and views are valid because people are approaching it from different angles with different experiences as well. It's important to be respectful of everybody's opinions and insights on a matter as well.
Yeah, especially when it's emotional, when it's like an emotional thing. Like, if you want to tell me that the earth is flat, I'm going to tell you to get out and go bother somebody else because I'm busy. I have TV to watch or something. But like, yeah, when it comes to looking at something, it's a subjective thing, how we feel, we respond to art. That this is subjective, and there's really no sense in this, whatever the word for this is.
Right.
We
Lynch,
down south, we call that flapping your gums.
Perfect. Lynch, thanks for joining us. Can we hear you? Can you hear us?
We can't hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay, great.
All right, fantastic.
Can't hear me again?
No, we can hear you.
We can hear you now. Yes. All right. So, Lynch, we were just
I can hear
covering
you. Yes, I can hear you.
All right, a little bit of a delay on this one. So, Lynch, we were just going around the table and saying how relatable we found the set was. It's a little more grounded in reality than your typical Magic set as well, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing in regards to people's experiences with their past in education.
So, I mean, I think it's interesting that they chose to do this, to make a set about college. But, you know, a lot of the people that I feel I play Magic with now, I think care less about how relatable it is and more of like how fun the cards are. It's been a while since I was in college. I mean, I'm almost 40. So when I think about college, when they were talking about the quad and hanging out in certain areas, I related to that. I was like, wow, I'm getting like flashbacks of my college life. You know, I think certain cards are cool, like the stadium card that has that new win condition that was in the opening video. So I think that's one of the beautiful things about Magic is the fact that if people don't like the college stuff, if it does offend them, there's so many there's a D&D set coming out soon. There's a Lord of the Rings set coming out soon. So it's like there's so many different worlds that I think if this one doesn't relate
I can't hear Lynch anymore.
you can find one that does.
Again.
Oh, did I cut out?
Nope.
I could hear him.
I caught the tail end of that.
Oh, I could hear all that. Oh, he ran away.
There we go. All right. So fantastic insights from everybody in that regard. The thing that I want to touch on is the point that Clay and Rachel brought up here in regards to telling a story in a medium that doesn't support it. I think that that's a fantastic insight to touch on here because Wizards has shifted away from a 3-block storytelling method and towards a one block storytelling method. And we've seen it with Kaldheim and with previous sets as well. Do we feel that getting these appetizers, these amuse-bouche regarding stories and settings, to be more detrimental than beneficial? Because we aren't able to get a more drawn out or more in-depth story. We more get a teaser with the expectation that we're returning to this plane in 3 years from now.
I think it's tough
Ellie,
from
what
a
do you-
design standpoint, where you're trying to both tell a story and make cards that connect over 3 sets. And I think that's the battle they were fighting before. I think they talked about that too. By the time you got to the 3rd set, sometimes you've used all the ideas for the mechanic that you're just kind of tossing stuff in there, right? So one of the 3 sets always fell flat. But then now that we've gone to just doing the 1 or 2 set blocks, it's like, well, now the story kind of suffers because, like we're saying in this one, you can't really flesh out the whole journey or the background of a character. It's kind of like you get 5 cards worth of flavor text to tell it, and then if you don't go read online, like, you don't really get enough of the story to even know what it is. So I think it's tough, and we had a lot of situations where players complained because they got burnt out being on one plane for a full year or whatever it was. So it's tough. I do think the story suffers a bit, and that sucks if you're one of those Vorthos type players that really is into that. I mean, you kind of just have to hope we get back to that plane sooner than, I don't know, every like 5 years or 6 years like we do now.
Right. Fantastic.
Sure.
Ellie, looks like you've got some opinions on this too.
Well, I'm trying to work it out in my head. I don't think that's true. I think that this is so for example, let's say you just ignored I think Magic just gets in trouble because it tries to do too much. It tries to satisfy a lot of people, different kinds of people at once. And like, for example, like, why do, like, the whole Liliana being there, the Rowan and Will you could just not.
Yeah.
You can actually just not. You could just not. You could just not do it. You could just focus on the world itself without worrying about like some overarching narrative that you're trying to draw like between sets. You don't really have to do that, but they put themselves in a situation where they do that. And that's kind of like on them. Like, that's not really, like, you just don't know how to execute. Like, that's fine. Like, that's just, I mean, not that you don't know how to execute, but that's how they've chosen to do it. And so this is like the result. I think you can do 1 set or 2 set groups well. I think that this is a thing that you can do. And I think it makes more sense to do it this way, to do it. I would rather them figure out how to execute it really well. Because we get to see more places. Like, if we're going, like, if they do the 1, how many sets do we get in year 6? No, it's 6. Jesus.
It
4,
feels like
5?
6. I think it's just 4 right now.
What, 4? Something like that. But we get to go more places more often. We get to, and see more. And I like that. So I like that pacing. But I think for me, I always feel like everything suffers when Wizards tries to do like an overarching thing and then tries to get you interested in the plane itself. But then, like, for like a really good example is Innistrad and Zendikar when we went back the second time, and then at the same time there was like the Eldrazi's in both places. For me, that really killed my enjoyment of the story, of the relatability, of like how interesting the plane was. I was just like, this is really boring and kind of unnecessary. I'd like things for their unique aspects. And yes, I'm going to put a period on that, and I hope that people understood what I was trying to say.
No, I think you bring up a good point, though. Like,
maybe
did we need the planeswalkers that we knew to be at the university or whatever, right? Like, I don't think it was necessary. Like, this set wasn't gonna not sell because Liliana wasn't in it. We could have just focused more on the characters that were there.
Granted, Professor Liliana, it really did some things for me. It really in my spirit, in my
I
spirit.
mean, if you're into the whole school marm thing, she had it all buttoned up,
Let's not, let's kids watching. Let's just anyway. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, but I think sometimes it's a matter of it's also flavor text that they chose. You know what I mean?
True.
Like they have a lot of agency here.
Right.
Obviously, when they make all of their cards mechanically walls of text, maybe they have a little less. But some of the genuinely some of the flavor text they chose, I think is just kind of like I don't know if y'all have read I mean it is almost some of it's like frustrating especially with Silver Quill can be really frustrating because it just leans into this one aspect, which is basically Silver Quill is all bullies. Is that that's what I'm supposed to get, and so it's like you have the ability to communicate with us about the concepts of this thing, but you're choosing to really focus on one. But you didn't really have to. You just chose to do that. Maybe you thought it was expedient, maybe whatever your reasons were, that's fine, but those are your reasons, but this is the result. But I don't think I give them a complete pass in saying that there was no way they could have done better. I disagree. I don't think they needed 3 sets to do better.
Oh yeah, I don't think they needed.
That's what I'm basically trying to say.
Yeah, I think
so. Sorry, Jake had a point first. Let's.
Okay.
Oh, I just want to say what frustrates me is they show that they can tell great stories with the tools they have. I look at the card Expel, and oh my gosh, this is why I love Quintarius. Is because of the story that's written on these cards. Simple card, exile tapped creature. Yet they're telling such a vivid story about how he did not fit in this military academy, how that was just not where he needed to be. And then I forgot what the other card was, but when he starts discovering the history of his people in the flavor text, again, very simple mechanic card, and they chose to put a great story on it. I see that and I'm like, yes, this is it doing right. And then I see, these other cards who they don't maybe use that space as effectively, or we get the lovely joke cards, which believe me, I love the joke and the tongue-in-cheek flavor text. I feel like in this set it maybe was a little overused in my opinion, when it could have been used to further this story. But like DeQuan was saying, they're trying to do so many things at once, and it just seems like a lot of them fall flat, and it detracts from each other. And I just wish that I don't know what it is, really. I don't know if it's they need more people checking these things out, or if the resources are being allocated effectively to tell these stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think that goes to the point about stereotypes as well. When, like 3/4 of the set is devoted to educational stereotypes and 25% of it is dedicated to storytelling, then you very clearly know where the focus is on that, and it's not on storytelling. Right. Clay, you had a point. Let's. I
was just gonna say real quick on the kind of touching on both what Ellie and Jake said. I think it's a lot of these issues. Not that I know fully how Wizards is organized, but from people that I follow and people saying like, "Hey, I wrote this flavor text," and then somebody will be like, "Oh, I wrote this flavor text." It raises the question of how clear and the editorial direction is, right? And the supervision of, if you've got a bunch of contractors and each of them are given card or art or theme and then are coming up with their own flavor text things, right? And then how much editorial supervision is going on there, right? So like you can communicate different things, communicate different stories through flavor text, for example. But if there's not a similar level of guidance, or if you have a bunch of disparate voices in there, it can create these really weird disruptive things where you're like, you read this card, like Jake was talking about the other Quintarius card, the Stonebound Mentor, where he's talking about like he beams, his mind eager to absorb every historical fact the spirit wanted to divulge, right? And like you can see like the spirit's glowing, he's glowing, and you're like, oh, I'm cheering for this little elephant. And then there's other ones that especially the Silver Quill, but there are these other cards where there's either like it's almost too flippant, where you're like, oh, like I appreciate a joke, I appreciate a humor, but like this is just a tongue-in-cheek, the person breaking the fourth wall telling a joke to me. Like this isn't related to Strixhaven. This isn't related to this thing. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's a tricky line to walk. But I think that, you know, that could be a source of some of their issues. Along with, you know, like Ellie said, doing too much.
All I know is if I was actually in Strixhaven and I was in Silverquill, if any of those fools talk like that to me, no, baby. Absolutely not. The wrong one. The wrong one, baby. Everybody's dying. Sorry. Try your mama, don't try me.
Rachel, what about you? As a writer, insight on trying to tell a story through flavor text and cards, is it a medium that can be conducive to it? It's just not the efforts there, or the medium just isn't right?
It's very tricky to tell as much story as they're trying to tell in so little space, and also mechanically, and there's a lot going on here, like we've said. I think what a card game can best do is build a world, and I think that's where Strixhaven is most successful. It's like introducing you to this place and like the kind of people that are here and giving you these kind of snippets of stories. Like I think Quintorius is a very successful character because it's a very short story. It's a very general story, and there's nothing controversial about like not being welcome in a place or not being fit for a place, and then you found your place. And there's nothing that sort of beyond that. Like we don't need to know who Quintorius's parents are to understand like that story.
They don't have to be an established character in the lore somewhere else in order to make him engaging.
And so I think they just have to understand their limits here. And honestly, we're talking about Strixhaven as if it's a lot, but I think the set that is most guilty of doing too much is Kaldheim. Kaldheim was a disaster story-wise.
I skipped that whole thing. I was like, no, absolutely not.
And if you didn't know
who were the good guys,
there's like I've got problems with just the trailer on that one.
Like
I feel
there's like 10
was...
different tribal sets that were supported in Kaldheim. Yeah. Like it was just, and you had to know this world is giants, but also these. And like I don't remember any of it. And like that's the set I have drafted the most, and I'm more like personal with like as a set, and I still have no idea what's going on there. So I think like narrative wise, Strixhaven actually does a very good job of being like, here's a space, understand the space, and like understand the kind of energy here. And I think that's all we really want from this. At least I'm not a super Vorthos player, so I don't necessarily read every story from beginning to end. That's not a huge part of it for me, but I am a Commander player, so I like to know the legends, and I like to know kind of who they are and what their vibe is, and where that mechanic comes from is cool. And I think them recognizing that if they're not going to do books, or if they're not going to do like grand sweeping narratives, they have to recognize that the amount of words that they have to tell their story, and they just have to be very careful about the stories that they're telling.
Absolutely. Well put. Before we get to our next topic, team, I do want to remind everybody in the audience that we are taking donations for Magic Kids tonight. The ! donate command in chat. You can find out how to donate. We are doing some giveaways and some raffles for anybody who donates in increments of $5 throughout the night. So please head over there while we get to the other side of our discussion here, the back half of our roundtable. Before we take Q&As, make sure to get in, because the last thing that we'll be doing tonight is doing those draws for those prizes. All right. Fantastic. So the next thing that I want to touch on, everybody, is the distinction between the color identities and the color combinations represented in Strixhaven. We've seen these color combinations before. We've seen Boros in red-white, and now we have Lorehold in red white. Is there a reason to do it over again? Is there an identity thing that they want to break with from the Ravnican guilds and do these 2 color identities again? And whether this is mechanically or whether this is flavorfully, interested in everybody's opinion. Is there a distinct difference between green black being Golgari versus green black being Witherbloom? And is it worth doing over again with a different coat of paint on it?
I don't feel, for at least for me, like when I was playing, I've already built a few Witherbloom decks and played through them, and like they didn't, like if they would have said Golgari whatever, I would have still felt the same. Like it's still kind of using the graveyard and real recycling things, and it's like it's taken a slightly different side to it, but it doesn't feel completely different. Like from the story standpoint, obviously there's some differences there, but for me, I mean, I look at the Lorehold cards and I'm like, yeah, I could put these in a Boros deck and they would still do the same things. So I didn't feel it was greatly different. It just feels like they just got a different label, because calling something Boros at the university would have just been confusing for people when that's a place on Ravnica, right? I think that's the only reason it happened more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that begs the question, why wasn't this Ravnica University the set then?
Because I think
place on a different place.
I think after going to Ravnica for a 3rd time, right? Like I think if Wizards had come out this close to War of the Spark and been like, "Hey, now it's Ravnica U," like the jokes would have just been endless, right? Like the Twitter would have just been on fire with just roasting that.
Yeah, we really would have jumped the shark.
Yeah, it would have.
Right, yeah.
The shark to crab.
The shark to crab.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
That's the assistant dean for Quandrix, right? The shark to crab.
Yeah.
You don't want to get called into that dean's office.
No.
So I've committed the great sin of building a Niv Mizzet deck with Dragon's Approach.
Oh, yeah.
I can respect that.
And it like the flavor wise feels a little strange to put an Izzet commander at the head of a Prismari deck, but I love it. I love looking at these color pairings with a fresh eye and a fresh I think a coat of paint makes people look twice at stuff. I've been a Boros player for a long time. I am a fan of the aggro strategy, but the flavor on Boros is not something that I connect with or like at all. It's like we talk a lot about it on the podcast. The Boros flavor is the church and the military, and that's it. And it's the church and the cops, and that's all you get. And so being able to look at the red-white color combination in terms of like adventurers and history and like heroes and spirits is like feels a lot more like there's a lot more to grab on to that as a person who's played that color pair for a very long time. And we've talked a lot about how everybody likes Lorehold better than Boros, but I also like the reapproach of Izzet, because Izzet's all very like mad scientists and crazy like things blowing up and goblins with goggles on, but you get to take this sort of creativity and adventurous creation and reapply it to the arts is awesome and it's very cool. I think it's neat to look at the same qualities of magic and apply it to a different world, and it has some of the same things that we recognize and a totally new twist on it. So I think that's my favorite part about the set is the new coat of paint on the color pairs.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I was going to say I think that like the neat thing that they pulled off with these reskins, basically, right, is like DeQuan said, like you could take Lorehold cards and put them in a Boros deck, and they're going to do really good things for you. But by themselves, this feels like adjacent space to a lot of what like Boros did traditionally, like in Commander, for example, like some of the ways that these spells matter, the way that it gets Boros gets cards back, cards leaving your graveyard, like these new aspects, they synergize, but kind of, it's not the same thing, but it's not totally different. You know what I mean? And like Quandrix with the, hey, now we care about the making these specific fractal token creatures, right? Or like, hey, Simic has always cared about lands, but like 8 is the magic number. I get to 8, I get a bonus thing, like, you know, this like that math thing, like Rachel said with Prismari. And like the elementals, I love that Prismari has this like the 4/4 elemental token, right? And like that's part of the art. You express, you do the magic, and you get these beautiful creatures and this stuff. And so I don't, beyond what we said about, I think you just have to create a different name if you go to a new place, right? Just like Ikoria with the, you know, all right, so we have the triomes. We got to give them these new names and kind of explore this new thing, just because like we can't still use the old terms.
Right.
But I think they pulled it off really well. I really like the flavor of all the schools, whether or not I like resonate with them, and especially in a way that I don't know I connected with all of the Ravnican guilds nearly as much. Like I like Witherbloom a lot more than Golgari, just in the vibe and like the idea that they care about nature, death, and life, but then making a core tenet of that the creation of these token creatures that then you get the benefit when they die, and all the thing, like, you know, you have this whole thing. And Golgari, it was like you had to make your own. You had to go find your own creatures to sack and get the benefit and go do the thing. But these creatures, they come with that flavor, that mechanic.
Yeah. I agree. I love some of the pivots on the what has been established as these color combinations, with Izzet being unbound science and Prismari being unbound passion and creativity. They're flip sides of the same coin almost. And mechanically, they care about a lot of the same things, and they're expressed in a lot of the same ways. Like looking at Quandrix and looking at base powers and +1/+1 counters. These are all things within Blue and Green's wheelhouse, but they're expressed through a dimension of these colors and through flavor that we haven't seen before in how math and nature play hand in hand. I think it's interesting takes on that. Ellie, what do you think?
I don't think that Strixhaven is reskinned Ravnica. I think the only college that falls close to that is Witherbloom, but the other ones feel very distinct enough, for sure. So I don't quite understand, because I've heard this before, like, oh, it's just like we're going back to Ravnica, but you're not. I think the problem is it's really hard to divorce in your head flavor and mechanics. And we kind of mix them up. So we think, oh, because these have the same mechanics, these are the same. But it's not, but that doesn't mean that you're in the same place, right? Like that's not what that means. So for me, I can make that distinction, and they've done a well enough job, like with the fact that with Lorehold, I think they did the best job with it being like, these are not military people, or that's not what's happening. These are adventurers, explorers. They care about history and what it can teach you. All those that identity feels very distinct from what Boros felt like, which is, what is the Boros identity like, honestly? I don't
angels and soldiers,
church and military,
angels and soldiers, like
church and the military. That's
I think Rachel got it right.
Like it's like, no, get out of here. But yeah, so I don't really think that this is reskinned Ravnica. I do think anytime you're going to have a 2-color set, because Ravnica is so embedded, I guess, in Magic Memory, because we've been there so often, and we're always going to kind of default to comparing, the color pairs in each set. But I don't think that they're the same. I think they're going to have similar mechanics. They're going to have things that they care about stuff in the same way, because it's black and green, and black and green cares about certain things because it has mechanics and certain things it's allowed to do, and it doesn't really matter how many ways you reskin that, it's still that. So yeah, that's that's what I think about it.
Absolutely. Jake, your insights?
Yeah, I want to touch on something Clay said. I thought it was interesting how no one calls the color pie Indatha, or what are the other ones? Raugrin or anything. But I do feel like Lorehold is going to stick around. I feel like there will be people who are like, oh, you're playing a Boros deck. No, this is a Lorehold deck. Because there is enough character built into these color identities. And like Ellie said, maybe they're not doing something mechanically different. I mean, they're still within, the color pie and what those colors do. But I mechanically loved spells, stuff, draw cards. I love it, kind of that impulse and whatnot. But on a flavor standpoint, I don't feel like a mad scientist. Prismari, though, oh my gosh, yeah, the ingenuity, the spectacle, the impulsiveness of being a performer, that resonates with me. I don't know when I'll say I'm an Izzet, I'll never be an Izzet mage again. I will probably forever feel like a Prismari mage, and I think giving people the opportunity to feel that way is a good thing, and having that vastness, where Ikoria was like, I don't think there was really any differences between the colors and what they did. They were just they were just the names of the colors. With this set, they were able to put personality into those identities, which I think people are going to hold on to.
Fantastic. Excellent. Absolutely fantastic point. And I think that goes back to how relatable the setting is as well. There's so much from real life that people can connect to, that you can see yourself being a Witherbloom mage or a Quandrix mage, but not see yourself being a Simic mage or an Izzet mage. Right. Again, it has to do with the setting and a lot of the relatability to it. I want to remind the audience that we'll be taking questions and answers in just a little bit as well. We're going to do another pass around the table with another topic. But if you've got any questions for the panel here, please put them in chat. We'll be answering them. They'll be queued up for us, and we'll get to them in just a couple of minutes. All right. So the next topic for our panel here, as Commander players, and myself as a deck builder and a brewer, I have to ask, what are you excited for? What is your favorite card from the set? What are you looking to brew around? Because personally, for me, this set has been a gold mine. I have already built a dozen decks out of things from this set, and I am looking forward to building more. So Jake, I know that you immediately dove into Galazeth there. What else are you looking forward to? What are your favorites? What are you building?
Yeah, I definitely built a Galazeth Prismari deck, and it was bonkers. It turns out treasure tokens are good. Dockside Extortionist is real. And then they get to stay around, because you don't have to tap them. So some interesting stuff there. So that's all me. I get to sling my instants and sorceries, have a good time. And I get to call it Prismari, so I get to be extra about it, and my friends can't complain. But I have found that ever since Dominaria and these uncommon legendaries, I love brewing those. As a person who generally plays casual commander, so of course Quintarius is definitely one on my list, and just kind of I wanted to use him, and I want to find like a bunch of old border cards to play with him. The idea of bringing the history to life, and doing some stuff like that. And so I'm super excited about that they make these uncommon commanders interesting enough to where I want to do something silly like that, where I can do, and luckily Time Survivor Master just reprinted a bunch of cards, time shifted and whatnot. So me and Quintarius are gonna have a great time. I'll do a quick plug. Check out my YouTube, because he's definitely gonna be on there, and it's gonna be a lot of cool stuff. Just a little plug there. But so Quintarius and there's another uncommon one. I'm gonna think about it as soon as I pass my turn or whatever this is called. But there's definitely some sweet stuff. I love building around the uncommons, because I feel like it gives me a commander that does something but isn't as crazy as some of the ones that are in the higher rarities. Not that I think there's any necessarily overpowered commanders in this set, but it just feels like a Quintorius deck. It's going to be a chill deck. We're going to see some cool cards. I'm going to do some janky stuff. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to tell a story.
Love it. Love it. Sorry for people posting their questions for Q&A in chat. If you want to make sure we don't miss them, redeem the highlight message so that we can scroll back up through chat and see them. Please and thank you. All right. DeQuan, what are you building? What are you looking forward to out of the set?
So here's the weird thing, right? I'm on the advisory group, and I only actually play a single commander and have for like 15 years. But I just rotate a bunch of cards in and out of that same deck, which is kind of cool. I would say for like standard, I've already put up, I don't know, like 10 decks on my YouTube channel, like since then. So if you want material, you know, go watch that. But I do like some of the, like a lot of the cards that came out in the commander decks with this year, like seem really, really good. You know, I like, what's it called? Surge to Victory. I think I love the like gambling aspect of that. Where like, all right, I'm going to discard this card. We're getting into the red zone, and we're just going to see if this goes off or not, right? Like, it's either going to hit and it's going to be awesome,
sweet.
or I just like gamble and I lose, right? Like, this is sort of what it feels like, you know? So I like that aspect of it. There's another one that, is it like excavation? What is it? Excavation technique or something like that? Maybe that's it. Where like you get the, I don't know. It's like it brings more of the, I don't know, diplomatic part of the game in while still being functional. It's not this political thing just for the sake of being political. It's like, all right, I kind of need to destroy some things, but like, what do you find important that you want to destroy? Like, I might give you a copy too, you know, if you need it. So like some stuff like that, like the Silver Quill Dragon, I think is very cool from that whole like political sort of like, well, I'll give somebody else something and I'll get a little bit of something. So like a lot of that being introduced, I think, in a way that feels really functional that you can build around without having to play a deck just like full of that is really kind of fun.
Fantastic. And I like you bringing up the technique cards, the ones that you get 2 copies of, but you give someone else a copy of. That strikes me a lot like the Will of the Council mechanic out of Conspiracy, where, you know, people get to vote on things and you take the opinion of the table into account. And for a format like Commander, it is engaging. And it is one of those things that gets more people involved. And the more times people can be involved on a turn that's not their own is a time when the game gets more engaging and more exciting. I think
I also like the keyword on that, the demonstrate, because it comes off perfectly. Like, hey, I'm going to show you this a couple of times. Now you got to do it, right? Like it's sort of what it feels like. So I'm like, one of the times the keyword like lines up exactly with what the card's doing.
Fantastic. Yeah, love that flavor to it. Rachel, how about you?
Man, I'll be honest, I am not a spellslinger. I'm a creature player. I'm an aggro player. And I did not expect Strixhaven to be a set that I really grabbed onto mechanically. I was just like, you know, they have to make sets for everybody. But there was a number of cards that I started building immediately. I liked a lot of them from the Commander product specifically. I've never been much of a blue player, but I've built 2 blue decks recently. I really like Octavia, just for being sort of a ridiculous, funny card, but also I loved that they made an octave octopus. I think that's it's just cute. So I started brewing around Octavia. I also started building a Mavinda deck. I just wanted to see what a mono white Spellslinger deck looked like. And then I was quite taken with Nils, Discipline Enforcer. He is a mono white +1 counter commander that makes it more difficult for people to attack you. I love playing a political game, and I like them really leaning into that with the commander products. They've been printing the goad enchantments in just about every product for the last 2 years, maybe 3 years. And I love those. So it's fun to see them really embracing a lot of the stuff that's unique to Commander in the Commander products. So I think those are the Commander products stood out to me in terms of what I want to build.
Fantastic. Ellie, anything that you're looking forward to, excited about?
Yeah, so actually there've been a couple. I haven't started building any yet. I do like the Velomachus Lorehold. I do like that dragon. I just like the idea of just red white spells, you know, like I guess you have Fire Song and Sunspeaker already, so maybe it's not super original, but it just seems like so powerful. And then watching Olivia play it the other night was really cool. I like the Master Chef Guillaume or
Guillaume.
Oh yeah,
Guillaume.
Guillaume.
I've kind of always wanted to have like a food deck, and so it's kind of a cool way to. But the problem with food is that, well, you only have Throne of Eldraine, and so there's not a lot of food matters cards. So in this way, it's like, oh, I can still have this cool food thing without without having to need a bunch for it. Like, it's kind of easy to get those food tokens. You just have creatures come into the battlefield, which I like to do.
And I personally love it from a flavor perspective, because you can lead into food tokens mechanically, but you can also include everything that's food related from a card just to make a really flavorful deck. And pardon the pun when I say flavorful regarding a food-based deck too. But but you can include like Butcher's Cleaver in there and Hot Soup, and those are food adjacent cards that play into a theme, and just again, Chef's Kiss, beautiful from a flavor perspective. I absolutely love it. Clay, how about you? Anything you're excited for?
So we kind of talked a little bit about the first deck that I'm going to build out of Strixhaven is with the Essex, the green-blue fractal legendary, solely because the whole goal is going to be how many Avenger of Zendikars can I make in one game, because you get Essex, you go Avenger, each of the plants, and so I've already got 2 shells lined up. One that's basically like a spell-based one, and the other one that's a creature-based one, but all tokens for both sides. So that's what I'm most excited about, mostly just to like subject my co-hosts to that, and like while we're sitting here streaming, and I'm just like going through multiple packs of infinite tokens of just, this is an Avenger, this is an Avenger, this is an Avenger, this is a plant, this is a plant. Outside of that, I really like a lot of what the Silver Quill and Witherbloom cards are doing. And one of my first commander decks that I ever built was Gave, Guru of Spores. And so there's a lot of cards that when I saw this set, I was like, I think I'm going to rebuild Gave, actually, with Shale, the white Dean from Silver Quill, with that ability to put a 1/1 counter on each creature that enters the battlefield this turn. That seems great when you're making tokens. Dramatic Finale. I don't know if that card's ever going to be like great, but artistically, like the art for that card is great. Like the Anthem part, a non-token creature dying, you get an Inkling. Like if you have Devotion, anything that cares about Devotion, that like white, black, like that seems great. I want to play this card. So that's probably the other way I'm going to go. I also looked at like Valentine, the green black, the Witherbloom Deans. They both also seem to fit that deck really well as well. And so that's probably like, I don't know, the Essex deck is going to be a meme, but the Gave deck will probably be one that I'll hold on to more than like once, one game.
Fantastic. I know personally, I was really excited about everything coming out of C21. All of those gripped me immediately, and I dove headfirst into all of them. And the one that I thought that I was least excited about at first was the Witherbloom one with Willow Dusk. But when I started building around Willow Dusk, I realized that there's a kind of play cadence with Willow Dusk where you want to essentially bomb yourself paying life first, then put counters on things to gain that life back. And it's this real slingshot play style where you're losing life and then regaining it all, and then losing life and regaining it all. And that seems really different from a pace of play or a cadence of play that's almost poetic. And when I built the deck, I was like this is a deck that I could casually play ad nauseum in, because I want to bomb myself for 20 something life, throw those counters on a creature with life link, and then gain it all back. And that's a really interesting dimension that you don't see out of these color combinations. And I think that that harkens back to our conversation about color identities and how they are disparate from the Ravnican color identities, because a lot of them open up some of these play styles that you don't normally see. out of these color combinations. For instance, Quandrix is very much more on the spell slinger side than you see out of Simic, which is more about dropping creatures and pumping those creatures up, making those creatures bigger. So there are similarities and differences, but overall, this set, from a deck builder perspective, really got my creativity pumping. So I got to give it an A+ from that standpoint. All right. Fantastic. So before we jump into Q&A, we've got a few questions lined up in chat. Any parting feelings about the set from everybody?
We haven't really talked about it, but the art is
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. On an Unreal level, across the board, commons, uncommons, like rare mythic, like the artistic style, the whatever their direction was, whoever was AD and giving all of that is just wonderful.
There's magical dolphins made of fire and water. Yes, please. On board.
And the fractal creatures as well. I mean, some of that just looks fantastic. References to real life concepts like the golden ratio, right? That being built into the flavor and the art direction of the set. That alone gives me goosebumps when I look at this. So
also the way that the ink magic is portrayed, like there's like the inklings themselves, but then just like when it's as I guess an inanimate magic versus like a sentient magic. I don't know if the inklings are like sentient or not.
It looks like that magnetic gel or whatever it is. It's
but
when it's around.
But the way it goes through the air and the way that they move and all of that stuff surrounding it looks so cool.
Yeah, and to add to that, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I do like two things. Like one, the uncommons were very good in this set, right? So you can actually get some pretty powerful cards, without spending on a bunch of rares and mythics, which is very cool. I also think this set was pretty interesting to come out the way it did, because the way the timeline generally falls for set development is like somewhere between like the end of Kaldheim finishing and I guess somewhere around the middle of Strixhaven is kind of when the pandemic started like ramping up. So this is like to see sort of like this is how things still came together despite all those issues. Like I'm kind of curious what like the D&D set and even these like I guess split set we're gonna have for Innistrad is gonna look like, because these were like the first Magic sets done with everybody working from home, and you don't have those normal meetings you normally have, or like, hey, let's go hop into the next office and go play test this idea I have, or like you can't really do that. So like how does that affect set development? So I think this at least makes us feel somewhat okay that like everything came out mostly fine and we're kind of digging it, and there's a lot of cool stuff to build with. So like maybe the rest of the sets are okay.
Yeah. Well,
I think this would have been before the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because a lot of the cards for the set were in development the tail end of 2019 at this point, because Sheldon Menery himself was invited to Wizards to help with the development for this. So that I mean, goes to show some of the elements that went into some of the Commander precons as well. Sheldon having a direct hand in some of this, but to your point, right around the turn where this was still in development is when things fell apart from a interaction social standpoint as well.
Something so this is off topic, so sorry.
No, please go ahead.
No, go for it.
The thing I liked about this set is they really talked about the magic of regular things. We talked about this set being very relatable and recognizable, but I loved it, like the math is magic concept, or that music is magic, or dance is magic, or like speech is magic. Like that is so romantic and so lovely to be like, these things that are art, like this is magic. And that's such like a fun, nice thing to put into a Magic set, to make sure it makes you look at the world around you a little bit softer.
Things you can like, tangibly do are magical.
You're like, I'm not just writing a paper for this class. I'm making word magic or whatever. But it's just nice.
Yeah, it's cool. Agreed.
I agree.
I agree wholeheartedly as well. It's doing something like a speech as a performance art, right? Who watched those game nights trailers, Command Zone trailers for the for the set and didn't get goosebumps from them as well? You tell me that is not a form of magic, right?
Yeah.
Like that right there is the embodiment of it. And they did an A+ job on that, and I think that if Wizards wants to do more in the promotion department, that's the direction to go with it. Because I think new players and franchise players like ourselves, I think we can all agree that is just the best way to get people interested in something like this.
Yeah.
Right.
I wanted to kind of add something about the set in general that I noticed that I really enjoyed. And if you want to bring up Team Pennant, I want to make an example of this. I looked at this art and I just noticed across the set that I think there's a lot of diverse characters being represented. And I think that's super important at a collegiate level. Being a public school educator, who's teaching in a low-income area, in a college town, a lot of my students don't see themselves going to that college because it is a more prestigious university or private institution, and they just don't see themselves there. So I think the representation on this, on just around the college of people of color being represented is super, super important. Seeing people at the height of academia. There was a tweet I saw the other day that was talking about, when was what year in your schooling did you have your first black male teacher? And some people are like, I never had one. I never saw myself, for me, seeing a Hispanic teacher, I didn't see that. And I feel proud that I get to be that for my students, that they get to see themselves in me and my success. And that's why I kind of gloat about my academic prowess, because I want them to see themselves in that. See, I came from a similar situation, socioeconomic wise, cultural wise, and I got myself a college education. I went and I got my master's degree, and I'm doing what I love. I am living my dream, and you can too. And also Team Pennant, I'm pretty sure it's me with the art. There was so I wanted to pull it up for that reason as well. But I think the representation was done, minus Killian's arc and the racial stereotypes that they leaned on for that, in the sense of just including people of color in the magic art in a very authentic way. There's ways to go. We know that, and there's always we're still taking steps with that. But I think this set at least stood out to me of being a very diverse set, without necessarily being like, oh look, people of color, look at it. It was just there, like it should be.
Fantastic. All right. Okay. So we're going to get to some of the audience's questions now. I do want to remind the audience that once we're done with the questions, we're going to be doing our prize draws too. So if you haven't donated yet, last chance. Increments of $5 gets you into the raffle. So please do donate. Everything's going to Magic Kids, a fantastic cause. All right.
Also, do want to shout out, we had talked about it before, but Mental Misplay, who should are marking right now, they are matching up to the first $1,000. So everything that, we're at 230 right now, the next prize level is 250. But so, they're doubling your money right now going towards this cause. So I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, and shout out to our friends Mental Misplay who are in chat right now. I believe Alan's in chat. Thank you very much for your generous donations too. And again, team, once we get to the $250 level, we're unlocking more prizes too. So if you get us there, more winners. All right. Thank you. All right. So let's take a look at some questions from the audience. Let's see. First one up is from DJ Collins. Favorite non-legendary card from Strixhaven?
Ooh, favorite non-legendary card from Strixhaven.
I got mine just right off the back. Those Zephyrin boots, I love them. It's like, yeah, it's like what is it? Mask of Memory, but with flying. I think
With
it's cool. It's
awesome.
with evasion. Yeah, I think it's a super cool. You know, if you're looking for like a budget commander kind of thing, you know, you want to soup these up on your guy, get some card advantage. I just think it's a cool utility card.
Awesome.
I think for me, it might be Decisive Denial, which is weird that I'm going to say a blue card because I don't play them all that often. But like, it's a very good splashable card that, you know, if you're playing mono green, like you can literally just splash a few lands or whatever, play this card, and it actually does a lot for you. It's an instant speed fight spell, and you can stop the bigger spells that are problematic for you. And it's an uncommon. So like, card's really, really good.
Yeah, I want to shout out this set for having some amazing removal in it.
Oh, yeah.
I think that we're going to see a lot of these as staples in a lot of formats
moving
forward, between Rip Apart and Fracture and Vanishing Verse and Decisive Denial. We got some real goodies that we're going to be seeing for a long time through this.
Yeah, Rip Apart is a sorcery, but that removes any problem on the board. That was going to be the card that I listed as well. We've got a lot of little problem cards to remove.
Yeah.
Like there's an artifact, or it hits an artifact or enchantment, which is great, but it also hits like Hull Breacher or Hull Breacher. A braid is better in this format because there are more problem hate bears that you're going to start seeing once people get their hands on them. So yeah, I really like Rip Apart. The other one is obviously Dragon's Approach. It's very silly, but I started brewing with it immediately, and I'm trying to get my hands on 30 copies. So.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it is a mythic rare common.
It is insane.
I opened a set booster box and I got one out of the entire set booster box. So
same.
I have a friend who has been opening, he shells like a ton of pre-release packs, and I was like, any of them that you have, I'll pay you for them. And he has 10.
Yeah.
Out of like, we're talking tens of boxes. It's insane.
Yeah. Right.
So
wow, it's
yeah,
crazy.
if you have it, hang on to it because it'll probably be hard to get a hold of.
Yeah.
Going now to buy all I can get.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they're really hard to get your hands on.
Yeah. Ellie, how about you? Favorite non-legendary card from the set?
That's kind of tough, but I think it's probably Harness Infinity because it's such a weird, I don't know. I feel like I can do something degenerate with it. Like deep down, it's like, I can do something broken with this. I'm gonna do it.
Nice.
Yeah, and then also the art's beautiful, and the flip.
See, I almost thought I knew your answer because you like Storm, like you're that person.
I don't know.
I thought you were gonna say Plum the Forbidden. That seems like totally your type of card. I thought that was totally gonna be all you.
What's Plum the Forbidden? Editor?
Oh my god, you haven't seen that yet? Oh my god, wait till she reads this. Wait till she reads it.
I like Harness Infinity because they were brave enough to make it an instant as well, and that's definitely breakable.
That's what I'm saying. No, I do like to do degenerate things. I do like Storm. I do like Storm. In Vintage Cube, which is where you're not really supposed to like it, but I like it anyway. But no, yeah, I think Harness Infinity is kind of it for me. There's a lot of cool like things in the set though. So
yeah, Clay, how about you?
First off, Square Up, because that is the funniest card name I've seen in a minute, and I cannot wait to yell.
You were talking to me, and I was like,
First of all, Ellie, Square Up. Second of all, my creature's a 4/4 now. That just like I can't wait to yell that when I cast that. Like that card, the art's cool, the card's hilarious. First day of class. Also, mostly because I saw somebody like had they had like photoshopped it, so it was like I don't remember who it was now, but it was an anime character running with like, you know, the toast in their mouth, like running for the first day of class. And I was just like, all right, well, now that I have this image in my mind, I like this card way more. And then Magma Opus. I just want to
that
cast
card's
this.
already getting fire. It's really good.
I just want to cast Magma Opus. Like that just seems great. I don't know.
I'm a big fan of double major as well.
Yeah.
Because I love to make copies of things, especially non-legendary copies of legends. It is a thing that I do, but just the fact that they called it double major as well is just I love it. It tickles me just right. So
Venerable War Singer. I know I did mention 2 Boros cards on brand. But Venerable War Singer is awesome. It's the one that it reanimates something from your graveyard based on how much damage it has dealt this turn.
Yes.
Which is like exactly the sort of fun stuff you want to see as a white and Boros player in Commander. So I was super excited about that.
Awesome. All right, so the next question up from chat, from Atris of Mist. Do you think there was some tongue-in-cheek with the elephant in the room of Lorehold's Boros identity change with Quintorius as the mascot of the change?
Wait, say that one more time. I've lost track of the sentence.
I'm just going to stretch because I think that's a little bit, but
Wait, what
kind
was
of
the
funny
sentence? What was the
headcanon.
question?
Do you think that there was some tongue-in-cheek with the elephant in the room with Lorehold's mascot of the color change from Boros, or the identity of the color change of Boros, being Quintorius?
I feel like you try real hard.
I agree. It's a bit of a stretch, but I think that there may be a little hint of
there might have been somebody who was chuckling to themselves like as they thought about it, but like isn't this like, I mean, red white's more going to have like the elephant loxodons, right? Like this is predominantly
one of those things that if I have like my eclipse glasses on and I'm looking at a 3D image and then maybe I can see it. Maybe.
I took it to be like elephants have a long memory.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
that's all I thought too.
historical
I was the same way.
Yeah.
Puppy.
Those thoughts.
Sorry about that. Oh,
Big Quintorius fan.
Our friends at Mental Misplay, on a little bit more competitive side of the format, ask, has anyone resolved a rushed rebirth yet? And if so, did it do anything in Degenerate? Did it lead to an instant win?
No, I have not. Now I feel like I need to.
Yeah.
It's a
Cool card.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet. Maybe that's the next thing I need to put up on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I feel like it's got a lot of potential to like you said, win the game. I think there's I don't know how, but I'm sure getting tutoring for a card. I had it played against me, and what it mostly did was it just saved their board a little bit. They were able to get something back from the targeted removal, which was a cool little trick. But yeah, I've definitely heard people, especially in the CDH community, be like, "Oh, this could be a way to tutor out a win con sort of situation."
The thing I will say about the card, though, I do remember reading it, and it didn't say your creature, which was interesting because normally cards like that, you have to sacrifice one of your own things. But like this one was like, oh, I just pick a creature, and when it dies, I get to go search for something. So in a commander setting, if somebody goes to sweep the board, you might be like, hey, that thing costs 6 or whatever. Like maybe I can go find something that has a cool ETB before it dies or whatever. Like there could be some interesting things you could do with it. Or if something's going to die in combat fighting somebody else. Like there's a lot of cool stuff there.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot of uses to pop this off on something of your opponent's and get a benefit out of it. I'm interested in seeing if there's anything that happens with this on the higher power end of the spectrum. Instant speed to play tutors are never broken. Awesome. All right. So I think that's it from the highlighted questions in chat. So I wanted to thank everybody for coming out and participating in the panel, in the round table. An absolute pleasure having everybody out. We'll go around, we'll get everybody's info, where we can find you, what you do, and then we'll take a look at who our raffle winners are going to be from our donations. So, Ellie, why don't we start off with you?
Thank you for having me. I'm Ellie. I'm Ellie of the Veil on Twitter. I write for Channel Fireball and I write for Magic.gg. And those are the things I do. I also stream Commander and other things like Hades occasionally. And sometimes I drink a lot of wine on the weekends and then write weird short stories.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Check out the Patreon.
That's right.
Jake, how about you?
Hey there, I'm Casual Jake. Again, thank y'all for having me. I'm a full-time choir teacher, but on the side, I make content. I like to play Arena and Commander on my Twitch channel at casual_Jake_. I also stream Commander with my team, Elder Dragon Skypelander. We get a host of different guests playing webcam Commander. That's why named Skype. We came from playing Skype on webcams before the pandemic, and it just kind of worked out after that. I'm also starting to do some YouTube content. I have a little show called Casual Corner. I get friends and content creators to play webcam Magic, and I put it up onto the YouTube. So yeah, and then check me out on Twitter. I talk about stuff sometimes. Not really shower thoughts like DeQuan, but just random things.
Fantastic. Clay.
Hi, I'm Clay, otherwise known as Claybee. I'm one of the co-hosts here at the CNCPowerHour. We do virtual EDH on Wednesday evenings and Sunday afternoons. And in healthier times, we stream live paper Magic. If there's a pre-constructed product out there, we've played it on stream. We do sealed leagues every time a new set comes out. We have a lot of fun with those. And otherwise, like right now, we like I said, we do virtual EDH, and we've been lucky enough to be able to bring in a lot of different people from the community. Chris and Ellie have both been on. We have a lot of fun. And again, I wanted to thank Chris especially for agreeing to moderate this once more, even as we pester him every day.
My pleasure. You know, it's my pleasure. DeQuan, where can we find you?
You can find me at Power Dragon, as it's spelled there, POWRDRAGN. I'm usually streaming on Facebook Gaming and Twitch. You can find my YouTube channel where I put up videos literally every day. Matter of fact, I'm actually at almost 1 million views. I'm about 3 weeks away probably from about 1 million views.
Wow.
And over 600 videos in about 13 months. So like insane, insanely
killing
crazy.
it.
So that's super awesome.
Yeah.
I also do have a podcast called Color of Magic, which is really cool. I recommend you listen to it. And yeah, the rest of the time I'm just on Twitter and staying busy. You know, I'm always involved in different types of community projects, and occasionally you get to see me do commentary out in the world.
Phenomenal. Fantastic. And Rachel, where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Rachel Reeks. I am also the co-host of the Comedy Commander podcast, The Commander Sphere. We release a podcast every Monday, and that is just me and my co-host Dan Sheehan talking about Magic stuff. Our last episode had about 10 minutes about corn, so you know it's it's a Magic podcast loosely, but it's a great time.
With a K or a C?
C. We're both Midwestern kids, and we were talking about the color white, and the question was, what is the whitest green food? And we said corn. And like in terms of major, like in terms of Magic flavor, we were talking about like what's a white flavored green. It's anyway.
What?
We're gonna have to go listen.
It's Southern country like hominy
one.
or something.
Yeah,
Checks out.
Ooh, hominy.
Mechanically, corn is white, is what we're saying. But I also play live D&D every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific. If you're interested in that show is called Better Than Heroes. It's 4 comedians playing D&D in space. So check that out as well.
I'm not going to be
Awesome.
I'm not going to be able to go to sleep because I'm just going to be thinking about the like color identity of food. How dare you?
That's
do this
what
to
we've
me?
been talking about on the podcast. Is like what like beans are white. We were like, if there's a lot of
See, Ellie, you could stream
pieces
this
and they're
whole
all the
thing.
same.
Like,
I'm
this is all
so
you.
stressed. I'm so stressed thinking about this. I'm so stressed.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to go and listen to some of those episodes. That's for sure.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a new series called Identity Crisis, and we're talking about all of the different colors in terms of their identity in the regular world.
Awesome. All right. Fantastic. And I'm Chris, and I'm your commander mechanic. I am legally obligated to say it at least once every time, and I am your moderator for this evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you for our panel for coming out and donating your time, and thank you for everybody who has donated to our charity tonight as well. You can find me on YouTube by searching Commander Mechanic, where I do viewer-submitted deck techs, tune-ups, deck building advice, and podcasts with cool people. You can find me on Twitter at CMDR Mechanic as well for my hot takes on the format and anime and stuff as well. All right. So how are we handling this draw for the donations here? Are we going to get some winners in chat, or how are we handling this? Already done, Chris says. Fantastic.
Well,
and where can people find? Oh, into mine? Gotcha. Okay, so I've got the message here. So we'll be emailing all of the winners of the draw, but for reference, the stained glass Kiora goes to winner DTN. Congratulations. The stained glass Ashiok goes to winner Thromo King.
Hey,
congratulations, other Chris, for winning that.
Other Chris.
Mycosynth Lattice has been won by Mr. Abzulath. Congratulations.
Oh, that's one of my friends. Yay.
That's a good one.
Fantastic. And everybody's friend Quad Nines has won our Mythical Archive bundle.
Yes,
congratulations, Steph, on winning that. The Infinitokens prize pack has been won by Coach Jero, Unsummoned Skull. Congratulations. The Dragon Shields have been won by Mishotem. Another bundle of Dragon Shields has been won by Leo J. Pies, our friend Joel. The Quiver gift card has been won by a Casual Camel. Congratulations.
That is an amazing name.
It is.
Right?
I just pictured a camel with a quiver, and I love it.
Yeah, it's like, this is amazing.
And in total, folks, we raised $255 worth of donations tonight, which has been doubled to $510 by our friends at Mental Misplay. Not bad for a couple of hours. We thank you all for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and spending time with us. If you missed the majority of the roundtable and you do want to catch the VOD, it will be up on my channel, Commander Mechanic, on Friday. So do come and check it out and tune in. Once again, thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our panel. And as always, good luck and have fun.